Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to get started with our program for this afternoon. I'm John Rocco. I'm the Vice President of SEATOA, and I'd like to welcome... Thank you. Got applause, and I haven't said anything yet, so that's good. First of all, I'd like to welcome everybody to our 15th annual conference. This is the first time the SEATOA conference has been in Florida, and that's because Florida is a recent new member of SEATOA, and so we'd like to welcome all of our friends in Florida and hope to see you at many SEATOA conferences to come. I'd like to also express the regrets of our president, Mike Williams, who could not be here for the conference. He unfortunately took a nasty fall on Saturday and injured himself quite badly, so he's back in Raleigh recovering. I also want to, before I forget, because I'll forget by the end, please, after lunch, stop in and see our vendors in Ballroom C. We're delighted to have all of our vendors with us, and we want everybody to go in and see what they're offering, because we really couldn't have a conference without our vendors, so please stop in there and see them. Before we get to our keynote speaker, I'd like to introduce Kyle Hollyfield from Magellan Advisors, who's the sponsor of today's luncheon.
Thanks, John, and thanks to all the SEATOA staff that do such a good job. I know it's a lot of work. I'm Kyle Hollyfield, Vice President of Magellan Advisors, and we're excited about sponsoring the lunch today and being a sponsor for the SEATOA in general. Just a real quick thing about us. Been in business about 12 years, and we are broadband consultants for feasibility studies, financial planning, network planning, all kinds of things to do with internet, including network security and network design. We have about over 200 communities across the United States we've done their broadband planning and feasibility studies for. Today we have about 60 active engagements that are going on as we speak right now. We have a lot in Florida, all across the country. Been in business about 12 years, have a pretty substantial staff, and have a big presence in Florida, and that was one of the reasons that we wanted to be here particularly. So that's a little bit about Magellan. If we can help you in any way, please reach out to us. We'll be here the next couple of days. I want to kind of add one other thing to that. If you SEATOA now has an app that will be active fairly quickly. You can download it to your iOS device or your Android device, and it should be active in a few days. So just on a side note, we've been working, SEATOA's been working on an app, and so we're proud to say that in just a few days it'll be active, and we'll start sending out information about the app, and also how you'll get pushes and notifications about all things SEATOA. So just a little thing I wanted to add at the end here, but thank you so much for coming. We're really happy to be the sponsor, and we hope you have a really good time and get a lot of great information. Thank you.
I also want to encourage or beg everybody to be at the business meeting tomorrow morning. And at that, you'll learn what SEATOA has been doing over the past year to provide valuable information and services to our members. The nice thing about SEATOA, I think, is that it's really a dual organization. It services our members who are involved in all things telecommunications for municipalities on both the municipal broadband and the public education and government access television side. So at every conference we try to have two tracks to address those issues. This year we're doing something new, which is actually having two keynote speakers, one to address municipal broadband issues and one to address PEG. And we're very delighted to have with us today as our keynote speaker, Andrew Hayes from the Rural Utility Service of the U.S. Department of Agriculture, to talk about funding opportunities for those of you interested in municipal broadband and other telecommunications activities and funding sources that may be available through USDA and RUS. So it's my pleasure to introduce Andrew Hayes.
Okay, thank you, everybody. I am the General Field Representative for the Rural Utility Service, so we're going to have a rural focus on the discussion today. And I'm here with two of my colleagues from the Florida State Rural Development Office, Caroline Evans and Elda Rogers. And I'll start up the presentation, and they'll get up after me, and they'll talk about some of our other rural development, business and cooperative and housing programs. But I'm going to start off basically talking about the structure of the RUS. We have three different program areas. We started off originally, historically, with our electric program, the old Rural Electrification Administration, bringing electricity to rural farms. And then after that, we added on the telecommunications program, of which I'm the General Field Representative. And we also have those two programs are administered by General Field Representatives. And then we have water and environmental programs, which are administered by our state rural development staff. And basically, for those of you who don't know about the rural utility service and the field representatives, basically the field representative job is to explain the policies and regulations of each of our programs that I administer. And we also review loan applications for completeness. We have some other programs there's a loan program that's going to be zeroed out for next year, but for the loan applicants, they send the applications through us, and we review them before they go to DC. Now, the program I'm going to talk about is going to be a grant program. We're not really allowed to assist with those programs because they're competitive in nature. But for the loan applications, we review those. Then we actually go out and physically monitor the projects. We compare what's in the applications with what they're doing out on the ground, and update the DC staff just to let them know how everything's going. And then the objective of everything, of course, after we loan out the money or give out the grants, we're looking for success stories. So these are the things that we take to Congress when they ask us, okay, we've given you so much appropriations for this program or that program. What good has it done? And so we try to get these success stories where we get a human interest. We put a face to the story and say, this particular person was helped by this program, and this is how this has made their life better. We put together a story and a picture, and those are the kind of things we take to Congress so that we can continue getting appropriations for the programs that we do. So what I want to talk about today is our Community Connect grant program. It's basically a program that funds from start to finish a rural broadband network. So it's a very unique program. You're probably not going to be able to find that too many places. We call it Community Connect because in addition to hooking up rural areas that don't have any broadband, we also have a provision where I'll get to that in other slides, where we basically require that critical care facilities be connected free of charge, and that would be police, fire, schools, libraries, hospitals, that kind of thing. Now, the program is very competitive, so we have a website that if any of you are interested or know of somebody who might be interested, get on the website, and we have our application guide from last year still on the website, and also a PowerPoint presentation that's going to be similar to the one I'm going to give still on the website. And the reason why that's important is because we put out a grant announcement, notice of solicitation of applications every year, and we allow 60 days for the application window. And 60 days is probably not a great deal of time to put together a complete business plan for applying for a grant to construct a broadband system from the ground up. So if you know that anybody's interested, what they can do is get on our website now and start using the 2015 application guide to get started. And what we do is we put out the notice of solicitation of applications. For example, last year we put out the notice on December 17th, and the application deadline was February 17th. This year, we're looking at putting out the notice at the end of March. So we're looking at an application deadline of, say, end of May, maybe early June. So the sooner that a potential applicant can get started, the better. Also on our website, there's a program overview. There's a list of awardees with other project summaries. There's our mapping tool. One of the things that you'll see that they have to do to apply is get on our mapping tool and show us the area that they want to apply for. So they can start getting on our website and getting familiarized with the process before we actually make an announcement, which I think would be a big help to anybody who's going to apply. Okay, so we have a grant program to provide broadband service basically in areas that basically do not have broadband service as we have defined it. So we've defined broadband service as basically 3 megabit service, upload and download. The reason why that's fairly low is because, as you see on the slide, we only have about a little over 10 million in appropriations for the program, and the maximum request can be up to 3 million. Now, this may change for fiscal year 2016. So anything that I'm going to be talking about this is all based on last year's application guide, and the reason why I have to do that is if there are going to be any changes, they didn't want to tell me about them because I would probably tell you, and then you would have an advantage over everybody else, and then I would get fired. So they don't trust me, basically. So use the 2015 application guide, but just be aware that there could be some changes for next year, and one of them could be that we might change the maximum request amount. We might lower that, or maybe the broadband service definition can change. I doubt anything's going to change, but it definitely could. But again, the reason why that rate is so low, if we raise the definition of the existing broadband service, that would open up a lot of new territory that we just don't have the money to fund. So for now, it's 3 megabits. Now, for applicants that do get awarded a grant, we require that the minimum speed that they can offer is 5 megabits. So that's our definition. That's the broadband grant speed. That could also be changed too, but for now it's 5 megabits. And basically what we do with we have the grant announcement. 60 days later, we have the application guide. The applications get scored. We rank them from highest scoring to lowest scoring. We dole out the request. Each grant can have a different request. Dole out the money for the highest scoring down, and then once we've depleted our appropriations, those are the ones that get awards. Here are the eligible applicants. Basically, on this slide, the big thing to note, basically on top, just about everybody's eligible. The only individuals and partnerships are strictly not eligible. Any applicant, even if they're eligible structure, they still have to have the legal capacity and authority to apply for funding from us and enter into a contract. They must have the legal capacity to own and operate a broadband system. We do make awards to municipalities, and the big question I get on municipalities is, can we apply for the grant and have somebody else do the day-to-day operations, contract that out? And the answer to that is yes. with the specifications that they have to request that in the application. They have to let us know who they're going to contract out with, what their qualifications are for running a broadband system, and they also have to provide a draft operating agreement showing the financial terms so that we can look that over. So that is allowed. Eligible project. The PFSA is what we call, it's a proposed funded service area. Basically in the application, the applicants have to get into our online mapping tool and they have to draw a map of the area that they want to provide service, and we call that the proposed funded service area. In that area, there can't be any existing broadband service, so that there can be some service, but it has to be less than 3 megabit combined. Also, that service has to not be in any area that's already been funded by our agency, and they can find out that either by getting on our website or contacting any of the field representatives for their states. And I have a slide that lists the field representative for each of the states that comprise SEATOA. Okay, one of the things that we require, in addition to, say, we give the applicant a grant award, they start building out their system, they can start immediately providing internet service, broadband service to the residents and businesses, but for 2 years free of charge, they have to provide broadband service to what we call critical care facilities. And as you saw in that previous slide with the pictures, that's the police stations, fire stations, schools, hospitals, medical clinics. Those have to get service for free for 2 years. And we do provide, as part of the grant, we provide, we pay for the cost of the bandwidth for 2 years for those critical care facilities. The other requirement is that the applicant has to provide a community center with at least 2 computer terminals and wireless access. The community center has to be located in the service area, and it has to provide free service for at least 2 years, open and accessible to residents before, during, after normal working hours, and on the weekends. And that's, in my experience, has been one of the big problems with potential applicants, is finding a community center and staffing it. But we have changed the program recently to allow the matching funds, which we'll get to in a minute. The applicant has to provide 15% matching funds. Those matching funds can be used to fund the staffing for the community center. Basically, we talked about the funded service area. It's a mapped area. It's a contiguous. It's one single contiguous area. It cannot include any cities or towns with a population of greater than 20,000. That's where the rural utility service comes in. And it also can't have, as in any part of it, it can't overlap with an urban area that has 50,000 population or more. Then on our website, on the mapping tool, when they draw the map, any urban area will show up in red. So it'll be real easy to see that you shouldn't provide that area in your map. So, now, one of the things that the PFSA has to be a contiguous single area. But because of 4G service, a lot of these rural areas, even though they don't have maybe a wireline service provider, they could have a mobile cellular provider that in certain places provides 4G service, which would mean that particular spot where they're providing it is ineligible. So we have allowed them, basically when they're drawing the map, they can cut out these little pockets of 4G service. It's kind of a donut hole so that you can still have a basic eligible area. Because we don't want a situation where a couple spots of 4G service basically rule out an entire area. So that's one of the common questions that we get asked. And basically this slide is basically saying here that it's up to the applicant to do their own finding so that when they draw a service map that they make sure that there's no existing service in there. Now we're going to go out and check it. But basically, the applicant can check the national broadband map, Of course, they need to contact the field representative like me so that we can make sure in any area they're thinking about we haven't already made another grant or loan to somebody in that area. But basically, they'll submit the application, and we'll go out and verify whether or not there is existing service in that area. And we do that with public notice responses, where we'll publish on our website that somebody's coming for an application for this particular area, and we'll invite any incumbents to tell us if they're providing service in that area. And we actually physically go verify that as well. It's not good enough that the big incumbent says, "Oh, don't fund that area. We're doing that." We actually make them prove that they're serving it, and they have to show us their designs and what speed they're offering and all that. So, but the reason why we do this is because we have very limited money. So this grant really has to go in areas that really don't have anything or very minimal service. As far as what we'll fund, it's basically any construction, acquisition, or leasing of basically whatever's needed to build from the ground up a broadband network. We just have a couple of restrictions where if we do fund buildings, that they must reside on property owned by the awardee. Otherwise, leasing costs are, we can do leasing, but only for a maximum of 3 years. So if you have to lease some fiber backbone or whatever, we can do that. We do fund the community center. We do have some restrictions on that it's the lesser of 10% of the grant amount, or $150,000. So the community centers are pretty small. Like I say, minimum of 2 and maximum of 10 computer terminals that we will fund. Now, if the applicant wants to put in 20 terminals, that's fine, but we'll fund up to 10, and they have to have at least 2. The community center, a lot of applicants want to find a center that's already built, that's donated. I know we had one in Georgia where they used a room that was part of the local chamber of commerce. So all they basically had to do is put computer terminals in there and find someone to staff it. That's fine, we can do that. But just note that the community center has to be located inside the service area, and it should be as centrally located as possible. Again, we provide the cost of the bandwidth for the 2 free years that the applicant has to provide service to the critical care facilities. Ineligible, don't have too many ineligible purposes. Basically, you can't duplicate existing broadband service, and we don't fund operating expenses with the exception of the leases for the facilities. Other operating expenses that are ineligible can be paid for out of the applicant's 15% matching fund. And here's the 15% matching fund. It's got to be cash. It's got to be on hand at the time of the application. Can't come from other federal sources. Must remain in the applicant's account at closing. That's important. And like I said, can be used to fund administrative salaries, other operating expenses. As I've said before, there's going to be an application deadline. We review the applications to make sure they're eligible and complete, and also we review the system designs to make sure they're technically feasible and that they're financially feasible. We fund the initial CapEx costs of the project, but what we don't want to happen is after everything's built and the last dime of grant money has been drawn down, that the project starts to go downhill because there's no funds to maintain it. So we do look through the financials and make sure that there's a reasonable forecast of how many customers are willing to take the service that they're providing, and that the prices that they're anticipating to charge. And we encourage market surveys. But we definitely want to make sure that these projects last for as long as possible. Again, applications are scored on 3 criteria. We rank them and award them until the appropriations are expended. And normally, like I say, this year, the application deadline should be around the end of May, and we'll actually make the announcement by the end of September. And here's the scoring. It's really simple. Just have 3 basic scoring criteria, what we call the PFSA challenges. It's a subjective write-up, basically, why does this area need this broadband network? How is it going to benefit the residents? How is it going to make their lives better? And that's kind of a starting point on getting them thinking about how to write up a success story. The other category is local participation. Basically, just have to document getting the local community involved, getting letters of participation from all the critical care facilities, asking people how much they're willing to pay for service, that kind of thing. And then, of course, management experience. We kind of want to make sure that applicants do have some experience running a broadband service, or at least they're the key. We want to know who the key employees are that are going to be running the system and what their qualifications are. And then there's an extra 15 points for tribal and trust land. So if you get on our website and you go through and see the list of projects we funded, you will see a lot of projects that went into tribal trust lands, because extra 15 points on a basic maximum of 100 is a lot. So definitely the tribal trust areas get an advantage there. But the program's been around long enough that a lot of the tribal areas that have wanted grant funds for this project and probably already gotten it. So we're seeing fewer and fewer. It's getting easier for other applicants to get grant awards. And if you look on our website, you will find that we have made grants in each of the states for SEATOA, except for, I believe, maybe Florida and North Carolina, I think, are the only ones that haven't had a grant under this program yet. In the case where we get down to the very end of our appropriations, and there's 2 applications that get a similar score. This is kind of our tiebreaker criteria. So this is something that applicants need to, just in case they end up in that situation, they need to talk about each and every one of these. Persistent poverty counties, out-migration, you can see what they are. But the speed of the broadband, our minimum is 5. So if they're proposing to provide, say, high levels of speed, say 100 megabytes of service or whatever, we'll take that in consideration, and that could be the difference between them getting an award and somebody else who's just doing the minimum. Okay, and as far as the body of the award, or the body of the application, it's really kind of like a business plan. We want an executive summary. The first one is just our application form, where you fill in the basics, who you are and where the project's located. Then an executive summary, a section where you're documenting, you're writing up your narrative about the benefits to the community and the local participation and all that. Then we want to see a system design, and of course the map of the location from the mapping tool and the demographics of the area that's being served. Scope of work is basically who are the key employees involved in implementing the construction. When is everything going to be purchased? Who is the contractor? When do you estimate to get started on construction? One thing I didn't put in the slides is these, from the date of the grant agreement, there's 3 years to get these projects built out. So the scope of work is really important. We need to be sure that the applicant knows it can get all this done in 3 years, which for these small areas shouldn't be a big deal. There needs to be a connectivity plan for a system design for how you're going to connect together all the critical care facilities. And we know all the ones that I listed in the slide, not every application is going to have all those. An applicant may only have a fire station in a city hall, or may have just a couple of them. That's fine. The more that's in the area, the better, the more points. And of course, the applicants can draw whatever area they want. So, draw whatever area you can to include the most number of critical care facilities. Financial information and sustainability, of course, the historical financials of the applicant, and there has to be a pro forma financial estimating the revenues and expenses going forward, so that we can make sure that the project's sustainable and that they'll get enough revenues in the future to pay for their operating expenses. A statement of experience on any, what they've been doing before, if they've been operating a broadband service somewhere else, or maybe the key employees came from some company where they operated a broadband system somewhere else. Evidence of their legal authority in existence, and then evidence, bank statement showing that they do have the matching contribution in the bank. So that's basically the program. Again, there's our web address, and it's our website's got a lot of useful information to help applicants get started immediately. And of course, you want to contact your field representatives, and those are the field representatives in every state. And if somebody wants a card, you can go on the website and get this, but if somebody wants one of my cards and wants me to introduce them to one of the field reps from the other states, that's fine. I'd be happy to do that, but there's a list of us. And that's it for me, and now I'm going to hand it over to Caroline and Elda to come up and talk about our rural development, some of our other business and cooperative programs and housing programs. So.
Hello to everyone. My name is Caroline Evans, and I'm a rural development business specialist and community development coordinator out of our rural development state office in Gainesville. With me, I have Alda Rogers. He's our business specialist and community development lead for our Florida Lake City office. And to get in contact with us, you can find numbers to contact us here at the catalog of rural development programs packet. We've got a huge stack of them up at the registration desk, and I've got my card. So afterwards, if you want to get in contact with us, all that information is there, and we can also relay you to state contacts across the country. So.
I've dropped these and broke these before, so I'm a little nervous because I did that the last time. Oh, I did good again. Do we like any of these pictures? What am I doing?
Well, that's where my mom lives. Shouldn't be forward.
There, I got it.
There we go. I work out of the Lake City office, and Shelley was so kind to invite all three of us here to speak today. I appreciate that opportunity. And she wanted to give you a brief overview of our programs. We have over 40 programs, and she thought that would be a useful tool if you could have a brief overview. And I'm living in a house right now that's being, as we live in it, where we are remodeling it. And one of my favorite things is This Old House magazine, and they kind of cheer you on. But there's always a section, and they show you a picture of a tool, and you have to guess what it is and how to use it. And so when Shelley talked about our programs, and that catalog that's out at the desk will give you a picture, kind of like in the magazine, a picture of the tool, and it'll tell you how you can use the tool. And our job is to deliver that in the local communities. And so wherever you go back home to work and live, our programs are in your area somewhere close. Even if it's not in the rural piece of it, we have some programs, and you can contact your local office, or you can contact Caroline and I, and we'll get you a hold of them. You're going to do that for me, aren't you? Over 40 programs, but under our Rural Development Agency, our loan and grant programs fall under 3 different categories: rural utility, rural housing, rural business. Here you have a list. This breaks down some of the projects that are in the Rural Utility Service, or the RUS. We shorten everything with acronyms, and we confuse ourselves sometimes. As you can see, broadband falls under this portion. I work out of the Lake City office. I serve 11 counties in Florida, and I really do like my job. I get to know the cities, I get to know the counties, chambers, IFAS offices. The Rural Housing Service covers a variety of housing loans, grants, assistance, as well as community facility loans and grants that could be used to construct a library or a jail or help fund a police car, for example. We're right there sitting with the city council or the city manager and trying to describe that tool. We talk to you and how it can work. And like Andy was talking about, yes, then we'll tell you the details of how to implement it in your community. Rural Business and Cooperative Service incorporates a wide range of funding, from energy to business development, to bio-based value-added products and co-op assistance in local foods. Caroline, I think, is going to share some examples with you.
Okay. Now we have a few slides from fiscal year 15 projects we funded in Florida to help put a picture with a program. This one is a solar rooftop energy project down in Key Largo for the Island Hammock Pet Hospital. This was funded utilizing our REAP program, Rural Energy for America, which is for applicants who are agricultural producers or rural small businesses. This one was a little bit over $163,000 project, and therefore 25% of the total project cost grant portion from the REAP program came in at a little over $39,000. The energy produced by these rooftop solar panels amounts to approximately 17,695 light bulbs a day. The system is projected to generate 75% of the total electric power needed to run the pet hospital, and it's estimated that the solar panels will return the hospital's investment in less than 6 years. So I think this is a fun project. It's in Florida, and it's not, just you can see what this can do. So that's one of the things that REAP can do. All right, this next project here, shown on this slide, was a $5 million guaranteed loan for Florida Aquaculture in Fellsmere, Florida, through our B&I Guarantee program in fiscal year 15. Eligible applicants for this program are banks and other rural lenders. First Home Bank was used as the lender, with us guaranteeing the loan. Funds were used on this one to construct a shrimp production and processing facility. And once fully completed, this project will add over 1 million pounds of shrimp to the Florida food system. So that's another project that we're very happy about. Okay, lastly, this project shown on this slide was a $190,000 grant utilizing our Rural Business Development Grant, or RBDG. Applicants for this program are nonprofit economic development groups, tribes, and public bodies. That would be like a city or a county. The grant was made to University of Florida Sid Martin Biotechnology Incubator, and it was used for scientific equipment purchases. Basically, in this research business incubator, you have the small business starting off a scientific business, and they can share this equipment, and they get mentored by University of Florida in the meantime as they're getting their businesses together. Once they grow and they mature, and maybe they're not so small anymore, maybe they don't need all of the mentoring anymore, they're kind of, they're matured out of the incubator. They move from the incubator space, and other small startup research companies move in and take their place. So we were just at the ribbon cutting for this, and there were a lot of really neat projects going on. A lot of energy, a lot of entrepreneurial spirit. Okay, and basically, I know this was very brief, but our main idea of coming here was to let you know about some of the over 40 different loan and grant programs. With that matrix, you can maybe get some ideas to take back to your community. Feel free to contact us. We can listen to any idea, and we're involved in community development also. So we can say, oh, maybe we can't do that, but we may know of a state program that can do it in Florida, and we can listen to any project that you have and kind of let you know where it might fit in with one of our programs. Our contact information is in the Florida Catalog of Programs, as I said. Our cards are back there. I also decided to bring along a program sheet for Rural Community Development Initiative Program. It's run through CP, or Community Programs area. And funds for that program can be used for strategic plan development. That could contain a focus on maybe broadband development in your communities. So, so that might be something you might want to look at. That's a loose leaf sheet next to the catalog. And then if you were going to make a strategic plan for, say, your town and incorporate broadband, that might be a way to do it. So, okay, and again, please feel free to contact us, and we can get you in touch with anybody if we can't answer the question, or if you need to talk to a different office. Now, do you have any questions for either of us? Just want to let you have a chance to. Otherwise, you can feel free to contact us. Okay? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much from our friends from RUS, and we hope that was helpful to all of you out there who might have some projects that you need funding for. I want to remind everybody again to go visit our vendors, please. Sometime today and tomorrow, many times, visit many times. And also tonight, please attend our President's Reception. That's always a wild time, so be sure to be there for that, and enjoy the rest of the conference.